Hello, students. This is Vedant Mirza. We are discussing multiple alleles today. We already know that for any gene, there are two alleles in most cases, and they are present on the same gene locus on the homologous pairs. But there are cases in which a gene may have multiple alleles. And since you have a homologous pair, you can possess any two of those combinations. So multiple alleles means that genes with more than two alleles, for example, blood grouping, there are three alleles for this blood grouping, I capital A and I capital B, both are dominant, and IO is a recessive allele. You can possess any two of these. So the genotypes and phenotypes are mentioned in the table. The genotype is for blood group A could either be I capital A, or I capital A, I small a. One homozygous dominant, the other homozygous recessive. The same goes for blood group B. A person can be blood group AB if both co-dominant alleles are present together on the homologous pair. The person will be blood group O only if both the recessive alleles are present on both chromosomes. The phenotype here represents the blood group. You can just practice certain crosses and you can just see how this blood grouping works out. When we are discussing blood grouping, there are some questions that you should solve, so they will just help you out with the problem. Uh, in most questions, the hint which is given is within the question. So reading through the question helps you understanding what basically the question means. We need to move on to sex linkage. Sex linkage actually means that there are traits which are inherited on the sex chromosome, and they might not necessarily be linked with the genes of gender, but they are present on the sex chromosome. Since males have one X chromosome and one Y chromosome, and females have both X chromosomes, males rely on that single X chromosome alleles on their mother, because the mother will pass on the X chromosome to the son and the Y chromosome will pass on to the son from the father. So the alleles present on the X chromosomes are completely coming from the mother only, with no reliance from the father. Whereas the daughters, they receive X chromosomes from the father and from the mother as well. So alleles which are present on the X chromosome are related with inheritance trait, and they are passed on from one generation to another in this way. Sex inheritance basically determined by the sex chromosome and not the autosome. We know that the sex chromosomes are XX or XY and the autosomes are 22 pairs. The males are 22XY and the females are 22XX. If you cross them together, so XX and XY when crossed together will give you 50% chances of a female being born and 50% chances of a male offspring being born. Sex linkage is a trait that is inherited on the sex chromosome but does not play a role in gender determination. For example, factor H. This is basically an allele which is represented by the letter capital H or a small h, depending on dominant or recessive allele we are talking about. This allele is present on the X chromosome. Factor VIII is a protein or factor which is required for normal blood clotting in individuals. In the absence of factor VIII or abnormal factor VIII, the person will have hemophilia, in which the blood does not clot. When we're discussing males, since they have one X chromosome and one Y chromosome, they could be X capital H and Y normal male and X small h and Y hemophilic male. So here the male will be dependent on this single H allele which is on the X chromosome, and its counterpart on the Y chromosome will just be absent, not present there in the gene locus, because Y is a different chromosome. Females, on the other hand, have three possible combinations. Let's talk about three combinations, then we'll reduce them down to two. So the combinations that a female can have are homozygous dominant, both capital H alleles on the X chromosome, one capital H and one small h, a normal carrier female, and both small h chromosomes. So a female could have been a hemophilic female if both H chromosome would have been there on her chromosome. But the thing is that this combination of X small h is a lethal gene combination, and whenever lethal gene combination comes across, the zygote does not develop. X small h is just one example of how lethal combination of genes work. They do not let the zygote develop. So if you cross a normal male with a carrier female, so the normal male will have X capital H and Y, and and the carrier female will have X capital H and X small h. If you cross them together, there will be chances of the daughter being produced normal and a female daughter, which will be a carrier female, and a normal son and a hemophilic son. The hemophilic son receives the small h allele from her mother and not from her father. If you cross the hemophilic male and normal female in another cross, you can just perform this cross for your own practice. Another example of sex linkage is G6PD. This is not entirely in your course, but it's better to discuss that. The G6PD is basically a gene which is present on the X chromosome, and this basically codes for a glucose transporter protein. People who are suffering from the disease of G6PD, their red blood cell burst and they are suffering from anemia. So females could be X capital G, which means a normal female, X capital G, X small g, a carrier female, and an X small g female, which will be a female suffering from the disease of G6PD. Small g is not a lethal combination. She will be very well surviving, but she will be suffering from severe anemia because RBCs will be bursting. Similarly, the male could be X and Y chromosome again. So X can will have either capital G and Y will have nothing because the gene locus is absent. Similarly, the X chromosome of a male could have small g and the Y would not have that gene allele at all. So this small g male would be suffering from the same G6PD disorder. The same goes for red green color blindness. You can just look for red green color blindness and you can see how red green color blindness work. It's exactly the same mechanism of what we have discussed in G6PD. In red green color blindness, the female could be X capital B, X capital B, X capital B, X small b, or X small b, X small b. Both the carrier female and the female who is suffering from red green color blindness can pass these alleles on to the sons as well as to the daughters. So the daughter can be either the carrier or the suffering from red green color blindness, but the men will predominantly be depending on the X chromosome from their mother. So they just receive either the small b allele or the capital B allele from their carrier mothers, or normal mothers or mothers who are suffering from red green color blindness. And so all the sex-linked trait, they are passed on in human beings from the mother to the son and not to the daughters. So if it's not a carrier, so just keep those things in mind. That's it for now. Thank you.